Howdy folks, my name's Christian and welcome to Bullish on Farming. Woo! Yeah, come on cows! Today is December 13th and it hit minus 20 last night, hovering around minus 10 right now with the sun out. And the past few days the girls have had access to this high strip of the field, which has a poly braid that runs along the line right there. And it's about 11:30 a.m. right now, and you can see how the shadows cascade over this field. And it isn't until about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock that you really start to get some sun coverage there, while this corner seems to stay somewhat concealed. And so we strip bale graze this high section of the field, and you know, things are cold enough that it's frozen out there. But we're gonna get a couple days of in-between temperatures soon, so it's good to have this wire up, and it makes it nice and easy if we need to get the cattle off the field into our yard, which we want to spend the least amount of time in. And that's why we are feeding the bales out here right now, and I just brought a couple out with the Kubota. But I also brought out about 2 wagon loads into the far pasture, where we're gonna actually be doing intensive bale grazing in a systemized way. And pretty much you just kind of set it up like a checkerboard if you were looking from a bird's eye view with bales. And you, in our case, we open up about 2 bales a day for the group, and sometimes just 4 bales for 2 days. Depends what works for you. It's kind of nice in the winter if you don't have to be moving a wire every single day. And so that works fine in the colder months too, because it gives the cattle something to do, picking through the pile. And they need to eat tons when it gets really cold just to kind of stay warm. So sometimes it's good giving 2 days worth of feed and letting them have at it. Past few days, those cattle have been spending all their time out here. Okay, I haven't put any straw for bedding up by their barn. And I did, you know, when we were transferring from the freeze or the wet conditions into freezing, but now that we're just frozen over, the residue from the previous bales becomes bedding. And this was a few days ago, and it's frosted over. But we got some fresher bales from the previous days, which leave some nice bedding packs right there, which are a nice fertility pad, is how I've referenced it in the past. Because the cattle, you know, obviously mob it, and then they poop on it and leave their droppings and they trample it. And then all the seed in that bale gets concealed by all the carbon and gives it a perfect ecosystem for it to thrive. And then if you have your cattle eating the hay and then pooping on those hay pats, the seeds that they consume from the bales germinate in the manure, I think 9 or 10 days after they drop. And you got seeding going on. And some people might say, yeah, well, how effective is that seeding? Well, you know, you see, it's an integrated process with the feeding program and the fertilization program. And so we're not looking for a 100% rate because we're doing it all the time. It is the way we feed our animals at this time of year. And anytime we roll out a bale, the same thing's happening, folks. We're seeding our pastures by, you know, dropping the hay seed into our pasture through the manure. And so that's why this work is so beautiful when you're moving your animals on the land, because things that you add like carbon onto the soil and, you know, seed that goes along with the bale actually has its purpose as well. It doesn't go to waste how some may think. And I said I didn't put any bedding out before. And look how clean these cattle are. Okay, none of them are covered in poop. None of them are covered in mud. And although everything's frozen over with regards to mud, if we had cattle all kind of mobbing on the bed over there, it would thaw right out and all the poop in it would be obviously become moist. And these cattle would get poopy and you'd have to bed it pretty much every day or two, depending on how generous your bedding area is. Because, you know, we got 40 head on that bedding one night, that thing's soiled. So keeping them out here, it recycles all their manure out here. You get another snowfall, it powders over. You throw down a bale, it covers some manure, It covers some low spots in your field. It covers some area that you want to build some topsoil and carbon. And it also keeps your animals integrating with their environment. I mean, they get to have the sunshine shining on them. I mean, in this case, this is a shaded section, which is what we're intentionally using at this time of year. But you know what I mean. The breeze is blowing, the birds are chirping, the animals are around. They're in a wildlife setting that really plays to the spirit of their nature. And you know, that cow's scratching its head on a tree. And I have no idea why some cows would want to be hanging out there right now. Their feed's over here, but they're just sunbathing and hanging out. And maybe being at the halfway point for the water trough. But also being out here, you know, the cattle pick through and graze. And they also lick snow. And so their water consumption goes down substantially. I mean, this steer right here was licking snow. Let's see if we can catch it again. It's got snow in its chin. There you go. They lick snow, folks. For those of you who don't get snow, and you're just curious, how do the animals manage through the snow? Well, just like a Canadian, you make do with what you got, and you make the most of it. Winter is not a, you know, we don't shut down in winter, where some places in the world may consider conditions to be unfunctional. We are well prepared for the winter, and so we manage our animals in a similar manner. You know, winter is a typically dormant season, but you know, if you're willing to keep your boots on the farm and get out there and do some good work with the animals, and you know, be close to your land and understand what it needs and how you can serve it, then winter can be a very opportunistic time. Plus, it could benefit you in other ways if you're not a fan of mucking out and maintaining permanent confined winter paddock settings. And so, you know, some folks will see the carbon that's laid down like this, and I've mentioned it before, but now since we're getting into fall, we're bale grazing much more intensively now, we'll say it again. Some people might be saying, hey, you're wasting hay. You're not wasting hay, okay? I've shown it in previous videos, but these sections, after a year, what does grow in here, which may be sparse, depending on what's seeded and the quality of your land and the pH of your soil, but typically it's a high nitrogen area, and the residue, you know, not everything will take in that first year, but grasses do come back. Clover seems to do really well, and what does come back is about twice the height, pumped with green, and looks super lush compared to everything next to it. Now in the second year, it takes much more thoroughly and it grows out nicely. And by targeting patches like this, you're pretty much building and compounding fertility by laying carbon mixed with the manure on the soil and the animal interaction and activity. And so what does benefit this, if you're a little bit paranoid about regrowth in your first year, is taking a pitchfork behind the cattle, and when they're done with a pat like this, spreading it around. You can even wait till the spring. That's what I did this year. And when you sprint it a little thinner, it does help with regrowth in that first year, but it's not absolutely crucial if you're willing to just kind of have that there, because you have enough acres and land for your animals, and maybe you don't. But the idea is that you do, and that you work towards that. You know, by having areas that need some time to regenerate, you're willing to invest that time, because you're not tilling up your pastures and destroying all the microbial activity below soil level, which is so essential to growing quality pasture and forage for your animals. You're looking for ways that how nature does things, and reflecting and mimicking those processes, which are extremely fertile when done properly. So it just takes understanding and a willingness to be patient too, you know. Things don't happen overnight, and regenerative works the same way. Things on this planet take time. And you know, when I look at this, I see a gold mine. I know what this section of the field is going to turn into and what it's going to offer my cattle, and that makes me excited. Okay? Now I say my cattle, but I manage this beef herd for a family, and they're great people, and I do have my own cows, but you know, these cows I work with every day, so they pretty much feel like my cattle in spirit. and what a pleasure it is to serve these animals. My passion is beef, working with cattle. But you know, I've just got some sheep on my own farm, and I've always had an affinity for the ruminant animal who can survive on grass and moves across landscape. So you can expect to see more of that on this channel, and gonna have some cool bale grazing stuff, something that maybe none of you folks have done before, and excited to show you that. So I'd like to say thanks for stopping by. God bless y'all. See you on the next one.